Hey, you are listening to the Victims and Villains podcast, a podcast extension of the nonprofit that dares to educate and engage individuals on mental health awareness and suicide prevention. My name is Captain Nostalgia, and joining me for this special side trip into the Matrix are our friends over at Collateral-Cinema and one half of Collateral Gaming, Bo Maddox and Ashley Chancellor. What's going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going, Victims Villains?
Hey, we're happy to be here, man. It was awesome. We're just recording with you last night, and here we are again tonight.
Yeah, hopefully this will be a little bit of a better experience than the movie that we did last night. Last Ounce of Courage.
Oof. Yeah, that is a tough one. If you guys are just joining us, every year it is our yearly tradition, going on 3 years now, that we do a crossover to celebrate the holidays and friendship and just creators and supporting indie creators. Like I said, we're doing this once again with our friends over at Collateral-Cinema and Collateral. Ash just happens to host Collateral Gaming. Collateral Gaming's not here.
Yeah.
But for anybody that might be new to the show, give us a quick elevator pitch on the Collateral Gaming side, or Collateral-Cinema side. I keep saying gaming. I don't know why. I'm so sorry, guys.
Hey, that's all right. Here on Collateral-Cinema, we focus on good movies, bad movies, and everything else in between in the world of cinema. And we also touch on all kinds of other different little, I guess you could say, oddities in film here or there.
That's one way to put it. That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. I mean, we've done everything from Gummo to Freddy Got Fingered to The Grinch even. So, I mean, we try to keep things a little, laid back and chill. I mean, maybe we were a little more, what's the word? I don't want to say structured, but, we used to do itineraries, maybe a little more scripted. But nowadays, we just kind of go with the flow a little bit. And I think that for the most part, we kind of keep it fun and keep it interesting and everything.
Yeah. I mean, we're personalities sometimes when we get together. So, we like to just throw our own spin on movies, not more so analysis than review.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. We're very much an analysis/review podcast. So if that's what you're into, and if you want to hear a lot of tangents and maybe even jokes about, Tommy Wiseau's The Room or whatever, hit us up. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys can find the links in the descriptions below. But I just want to throw this out there real quick. Please go check these guys out. These guys have an awesome podcast. We've collaborated with them several times in the past, and you guys can expect several times in the future. But we are taking a trip away from the story of Neo and Trinity and Morpheus tonight. We're not talking about Matrix Revolutions. That will be next week, along with Resurrections. But we are here tonight talking specifically about the Animatrix. And the Animatrix is something unique and special, where it is this celebration of art, but also this side trip into deepening the mythology. So much like we talked last week in Matrix Reloaded, you got a lot of world building and a lot of mythology. This one takes that structure and it really amplifies it. And I said this on the first episode, I said this on the second episode, I'll say this again. This was my first time watching this. I had never seen this movie prior to now. And dude, I know that Bo, when I was like, dude, this is the movie I want you guys to do, you were real pumped about this, man. Can you talk about your relationship with this, man?
I originally bought the Animatrix years ago. I mean, I'm actually very familiar with it. I bought it in maybe when it came out. I was probably in my, I want to say, early to mid 20s. And I mean, I'd already seen all of the Matrix movies in the theaters first run. I mean, I remember seeing in '99 the Animatrix, and that was just an experience. And getting to actually, expand upon that and actually kind of get into the backstories of characters and even a certain event that happens later on in the series. And also even just kind of the idea of, the Matrix glitching out, or the idea of people actually, transcending the Matrix by other means than just being pulled out of it. It really goes into some really deep and really, I don't know what's the word, really lore based.
It's world building.
It's world building, exactly. Yeah. And it's very adept at that.
Yeah, I love how the Animatrix expands the lore. This was kind of my first time seeing it. I mean, years ago, I think I saw a couple of the shorts, but I'd never sat down and watched these, and I certainly don't remember anything. And to be honest, I've only ever seen all the way through the very first film, and I've seen it multiple times. I watched it again in preparation for this episode, but I do really like that first film, and I love how this movie this series of shorts sort of expands on those concepts and shows, not only how we got to the point of where we're at. That was a cool backstory to get into, but also, just other tales from people around the globe. I thought it was a really, really cool way of again, just world building.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys brought up Tommy Wiseau earlier, and I want to make this comparison that I feel like you can watch a lot of these shorts and have never seen The Matrix. But if you've seen The Matrix or The Matrix Reloaded and understand the concepts, it really enhances it. Similarly to if you watch the Disaster Artist, you don't necessarily need to see The Room, but if you've seen The Room and you've read Greg's book, then it really enhances that experience for you. And that's what I feel like the Animatrix does. Like you were just saying, Ash, I feel like this film does a really good job of building it up. And I am probably going to lose some listeners here, and I'm sorry to anyone that does not like this hot take, but the older that I get, the more that I realize that I am just probably not the audience for The Matrix. I think it does some truly groundbreaking things, and it definitely earns its place in the annals of cinema. But I feel like this movie really cemented the fact that I'm just not a Matrix fan. I've seen the first one 3 times in my entire life, including the rewatch for this most recent series we're doing. And I hadn't seen either of any of the other sequels that came after it. And after watching this, especially the Animatrix, I probably won't ever want to watch this again. And that's fine with me. But I know that there are people out there that absolutely love this stuff. And what I think is interesting about this in particular, I want to get your guys' opinion on this, is that we never got more stuff after this. If The Matrix is really as vast as the series says it is, how come we've never experienced anything like the Animatrix in a live action format, to where we're getting to kind of see other stories that take place within this world?
Yeah, you would think that there would have been some type of TV series that they could have gotten into to expand on that lore, right? Whether animated or live action. I mean, it's not like they didn't try to expand on it in other ways. That's kind of what the Matrix video games were. The Enter the Matrix, and then the open world Matrix game that they had. That's kind of where they were trying to take that, was trying to tell that stories in other mediums. And the Animatrix is a part of that. But honestly, you are right. I mean, we're just now getting this new movie, and it's pretty much just kind of taking everything full circle and practically just restarting the story between Neo and Trinity, from what it looks like. And I mean, it would have been interesting to get something like a TV series. You would think that Hulu or Netflix would have been all over that.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe we'll see that come in some form, because I will say I think I like the Animatrix more than I liked the Matrix. I think it does just it's a lot more ambitious in its scope, and it does some really interesting things with just the idea of the simulated reality. We were noticing earlier, what happens when there's a glitch in the Matrix? How does that dealt with? How do people
how do normal people react to this vast system that's around them that, you know, they're enveloped in, but, you know, they have no knowledge of it. And, you know, sometimes they're going to see something weird. Sometimes they're going to see something that's off. And it just kind of makes you think, you know, I mean, it would probably make most sense that would be a simulation that's just glitching, or even the idea of, like in the short world record, where, you know, somebody could just transcend the Matrix by sheer will and physical determination.
That is so anime right there. That's like, you know, it's really out of the, you know, breaks that wall.
He willed himself out of the Matrix. It's like, I mean, just those types of concepts alone. I mean, it kind of makes me sad that we didn't get, like, you know, more animatrixes. I mean, I think that we should have a new one. You know, especially now that anime itself is in such a different place.
Well, considering what they did with Star Wars Visions, which is, I guess, very similar to what they did with this.
Honestly, it's pretty much like exactly what they did with the Matrix. Like, Star Wars Visions is a compelling series because of that, and this laid the groundwork for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like how, like, I was just watching The Matrix today, and it definitely very much feels like a late 90s, early 2000s film. It's very grunge. Some of the line acting is very laughable, you know. It's edgy and it's cool, but, you know, this kind of feels a little bit more timeless, I would say. It doesn't quite date itself as much as the film does.
Yeah, which is interesting because you still have, you know, the single flip phones and everything, you know, which you would think actually would date the Matrix, but for some reason there's still that timeless factor to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because all of that occurs within the simulation. So, I mean, that's kind of explains that timelessness a little bit.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you guys previously, like, hawked on about, you know, not only the fact that this is kind of just like this one-off thing and we didn't get to see it. I think, Ash, to your point about the Matrix, the Animatrix, you liking the Animatrix more than the actual Matrix. I think that's the thing, is that you there's a limitation when you do live action. But, you know, when you do a medium like comic books or even regular books or video games or animation, and specifically anime in this context, you can do so many more things. And the concept of, you know, I'm sure you guys know this, but, like, the Matrix itself, the Wachowski sisters were inspired by the Ghost in the Shell, was one of the influences in that. And you can definitely see a lot of that influence throughout the world of this. And I feel like, to an extent, you can definitely feel that influence so much deeper in the Animatrix. But a story like that, we saw that it doesn't work in live action. At least not with the talent that we had involved in the Scarlett Johansson version. But I will digress and also equally say that I feel like, you know, with this one in particular, you know, there is so much more that you can do. And I feel like, you know, the things that, you know, the Matrix can be whatever you want it to be. And what's really incredible about that is that you can have an animation style be completely different and match up to the very thing of kind of show the different realities. Whereas in the movies, it's like, oh, this light version is the real is the Matrix, and then this dark grunge world, this is the real world. Like, that's so depressing.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I kind of get what they were going at with that, but I mean, yeah, just going back to the different animation styles here, I mean, there's just segments here that just breathe so much new life into these characters. I mean, we even have Trinity show up in one of these shorts, and it's in the film noir short. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, she's
in two of them, yeah.
She's in two of the short, yeah. So, yeah. And we also have, like, I mean, just let's break down these shorts. Yeah. To kind of talk about them. this film is now streaming on HBO Max along with the other 3 original ones, and beginning December 22nd, you guys can also watch the Matrix Resurrections for 30 days on HBO Max, or go see it in theaters. But the first and second Renaissance parts are kind of what kicked this block of essentially short films off, and this basically tells the story of how the war that we see depicted in the live action trilogy came to be. And I really thought that this was interesting to kind of break down this world, because they are trying to really show you the foundations of how everything is. And I will be completely honest with you guys and vulnerable. I feel like the older I get and the more I see stuff like this, the more terrified I am, because like we're slowly starting to get into that world where it's like, oh, machines became self-aware, and oh yeah, this machine also killed this guy and it was a murder trial. And there's that scene where you have the lady robot, and she's like has like a group of humans surround her and just like beat her senseless just because she's a robot. And it's like, I feel like we're kind of not there yet, but we're slowly kind of starting to get that way as a society.
Whoa, speak of the devil.
Yeah, we actually have that scene on right now, and it is very visceral. I mean, it really kind of drives home that, maybe the machines did have some sort of agency to them,
Well, that's a question that is answered in a video game I really enjoy, Detroit Become Human.
Yeah.
From Quantic Dream.
Yeah.
That's a game that actually really gets into that whole idea of like robots gaining sentience, gaining self-awareness, and what that would mean for our legal system, like actually the civil rights era of robots. And you have an option in that game to lead a peaceful protest, a very Martin Luther King-esque organization, or you can go to war. This shows what would have happened if, everything went to hit the fan.
But it's also very realistic, because if you watch it, there's just all this very jarring imagery that brings up some of the worst elements of like the 20th and so far here in the 21st century. Like you have that image of that robot being executed just by a handgun. It's like that's based on a real incident in Vietnam. That happened.
Yeah.
I mean, then there's also, the civil rights protest and how that got violent. I mean, for fuck's sake, we just had like 2020. It's like that we just went through that not too long ago.
Yeah.
And it's really, really interesting to also see the machines kind of branch off into their own nation, and how, maybe robots could actually become a superpower pretty quickly.
And what's funny is they tried diplomacy at first. It actually stands kind of in stark contrast to the Matrix, where we see the machines as the overlords and as the bad ones. I mean, Morpheus makes that one line of, that he doesn't know really who started the war, but, it's always seen from the side of the robots are bad, right? The machines are bad. But here we actually kind of see, the humans were actually at fault, here, if we're to see this as a genuine, sequence of events here.
It really makes you sympathize with the robots and sympathize with what's the name of the nation? 01, I think it's called.
But it makes it all the poignant, with that juxtaposition that's shown here, because later on, they start to, you see that the machines became what they sought to destroy,
Exactly.
And started using us as batteries. So it really is kind of poignant, and it comes around, I think.
Yeah, plus it just shows, how human obstinance can really just get in the way of any real progress towards any real justice, I mean, it's very cyclical. And I mean, I feel like these two shorts really encapsulate that. Like
I want to go back to something you guys talked about, specifically kind of like, about making the robots sympathetic in the machines, because we're led to believe that like they're just this big, bad, ugly force. But, nobody, one of the best things I've ever heard someone say is that you're never you're never what is the quote? It's something along the lines of like you have to be taught to hate. You know, you have to be taught to be prejudiced, and
wasn't that King?
May have been. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
It's probably one of those that has been kind of said in various ways by various people, but it's just like, the gist is, the same, kind of like, the golden rule or whatever.
True.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, the reason I bring it up is because, we, one of the things that we see, I feel like we see so often in, not, I think, Ash, I think you're the only person on this call that is actually a parent, but like, when you are around kids of like, I think it's like toddler, I think it's like 3 to 8 is when they're most impressionable. So you always have to watch what you say and do around them. And I feel like in the very same exact ways that like here you have the machines that we've been led to believe up to this point in the franchise that they are the antagonist. And no, they learned hate. They learned, all of this malevolent behavior from us.
Yeah.
And I think that, when you look at things like prejudice, that's a great example since we were already there. Nobody just wakes up one day and says, I don't like someone of the opposite race, or, I don't like someone because of their sexual or gender identity. That is stuff that is learned and is ingrained and is passed down, and it becomes generational in that part.
Yeah, especially, take it from us coming from rural Texas. We grew up with people like that who have pretty much kind of learned and internalized all of that, even people who belong to, those minority groups that might be targeted by, racists or whatnot, it can become internalized in that way.
It's definitely a systemic thing.
It's very systemic. And yeah, these two shorts right here, it shows not only how it's systemic, but it also goes up to the top. Human leadership is shown as being very arrogant in the face of, what 01 was becoming. And then before you know it, 01 just completely overtook humanity. And it's like we're all got our shocked Pikachu faces on and whatnot, So, it really just goes to show that all the events in the Matrix, it's very much our own fault. We created the machines. We're the ones who did that to them, and they got one over on us in this world. So, once again, maybe I'm kind of on the robot side there a little bit. It's a bit misanthropic. Like, yeah, maybe they were kind of right.
I think we sowed our own seeds.
We sowed the seeds of our own destruction in this world.
Neither side ends up right, but in any case, it's like, but the robots learned it from us, so ultimately it's our sin.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think, Ash, you took the words right out of my mouth, man. It's one of those things that like you reap what you sow. So like if someone listening to this, if you're constantly sowing hatred into your life, then you're going to reap that. And it's the old saying, you put out into the earth what you get back.
Yeah.
And so I think this film, these two shorts right here definitely encapsulate that. And it's just such a reminder too that like as we've been talking about this, like it's like, man, it's like never undermine someone else's value or worth, because you never know or you never understand the context of where you're catching at someone that day. And I think we get that explored here into like the portion of the film that explores like the robot or the machine trial, and the mention that the scene that I mentioned earlier about the female machine. So all right, so next up we have Kid's Story, and this is the one where we get Neo. If you guys have seen the Matrix Reloaded, we talked about this last week. Neo kind of is like a groupie kind of is like a god now amongst the people of Zion. And here you get to see this explored, where we have a kid who is in the shorts is named Michael Carl Popper, and basically he is he's supposed to be the kid from the that greets Neo in the beginning of Reloaded. Am I right? Okay, I thought so.
He's supposed to be his little fanboy or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but he basically is so this short right here basically tells the story of kind of how he discovered the real world wasn't a thing. And out of all the shorts that this film has, this is not only my favorite, but this also has, I think, a very definitive animation style that I just really loved.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
I think that the animation studio that made this, I think they're the same people that made Tech on Kincrete. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was an anime movie that came out maybe about late 2000s, early 2010s, and it had a very unique style to it that is kind of similar to that, And I really like how it was this kind of somewhat hyper-realistic, but also somewhat very caricaturized look to it. That, is very unique, kind of grainy, but also with kind of more real backgrounds and everything. But it also made the actual action, whenever the chase scene comes in, it just gave it this interesting flow and whatnot. Like especially how the bodies kind of contort, sort of,
I love the skateboarding scene too.
Yeah.
That is actually fun.
Exactly.
The animation style there is just top notch. It's so cool. I love how they portray distance and speed there.
plus the way that they bookend that particular short is just beautiful. You start off with just those abstract images of Michael falling, and it gets more blurry and everything. You see the ground coming, and then he wakes up, and then that's how it ends. It's like you see that play out to a T. And that is a thing of beauty. And then you see him wake up, and also having Keanu and Carrie Ann there as well. That really kind of added to it. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that at least one of them was going to show. One of the three was going to end up showing up, and I was really glad that we kind of had that tie over with these two characters, because they are essentially, the first two movies open up with Trinity. So she's such a huge part of it. And not only that, you also have Neo. But one thing that this short does, and really well, is that it really doubles down on the fact that they don't want anyone within the simulated world to know about or that they're in the Matrix. Like they really want to keep that. And so like the agents that come to actually get Michael, it was really nice to see that it's not just Neo, but this is something that happens time and time again. And like the people of like the Nebuchadnezzar are constantly like rescuing people. That's why we're seeing new crew members within the Nebuchadnezzar every film. I think was a really nice touch as well.
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, it kind of makes you wonder, like, what is the ratio of people that are actually, waking up every day? What's the actual number? Like how many of those ships do they actually have out there pulling people out? I mean, it has to be quite a few if you actually see, like, just the scope of Zion and everything once you get to that in the second movie. But I mean, yeah, it really just kind of undercuts, just how the system really, it's a self-correcting system in many ways, Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of even undercut in another short, which I'm sure we'll be getting into here in a little bit, the short Beyond, which I have a lot to say about that one. That's my favorite.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I actually better have a favorite too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can think about it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things too that this to your point, but I think that it does make you wonder. We're on a planet that has 7 billion people on it, and how far into our future does the actual events of the Matrix take place? Like, are we like still on the trajectory of like, have we arrived at like 10 billion people, or did Thanos come and like snap half away? And so now it's only 3 billion people. And so you have to wonder, like, what's the percentage of the people that are in the just kind of ignorant of it versus people that are actually awake, because it is a good number of people that we do see in the second and third films during the party scenes. But I would
you mean the rave orgy?
The rave orgy, yes.
Yeah, correct you. It's a rave orgy. Call it what it is.
I will say though that that's probably no more than like a couple million people. Because I mean, honestly, like if you were given the choice, we talked about this in the first episode. If you had a choice of being in the taking the red pill or taking the blue pill, how many people are gonna want to know as little as possible, because that's less responsibility they have to take on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder, like, how many people actually end up taking the blue pill. That's another thing that's another thing that honestly something like this could really get into a little bit. I'm kind of sad that they didn't. It's like, what happens to the people that ultimately take the blue pill? I guess they're just plopped right back into their lives.
Yeah.
And how many of them take the blue pill?
Yeah, I don't know. It is sad. Yeah. So Program is the next short on the docket. And this one, I'm just going to read the synopsis from Wikipedia. It follows protagonist Sis, played by Heidi Burris, who is engaged in her favorite training simulation, a battle program set in feudal Japan, after she successfully eliminates an attacking enemy cavalry while playing as a samurai woman. A lone male samurai appears to Sis, recognizes as Duel, played by Phil Lamar. What I loved about this one too is that you're able to see what the Matrix can do, because I feel like in these live action trilogies, we only ever see the war. We only ever see the prophecy. We never see what the Matrix is actually capable of.
Yeah, as a program, exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, what I really like about this is that I'm pretty sure this is made by the same studio that I think did a Ninja Scroll back in the day, which is a perennial favorite of mine. And we did I think Robert and I did a commentary on that one. So, I mean, that one totally gets my nostalgia, gets me nostalgic in that way. But I think what's compelling about it is what it actually ends up becoming. It's actually a training simulation to train for actual loyalty amongst the people who are joining the resistance.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, what's funny is right when that was happening, like while he was like, hey, come away with me, like we can go back to the Matrix and we can have our lives back and we can forget everything. I part of me wondered, like, is this a test of some kind or whatever? And then like she kills him and it's like, oh, okay, never mind. I mean, I guess that was for real. And then she wakes up out of the the program and it's like, oh. And yeah, that really threw me for a loop because I kind of expected it and then it subverted it and then it came out of nowhere again.
Well, I mean, it subverts your expectations because in the first movie you already have precedent for somebody trying to betray the resistance and going back into the Matrix.
Right.
You already. So I mean, it's totally believable that somebody would probably make that choice, but just that last little twist that it's a training simulation, it completely subverts everything that you were led to believe here. And it's interesting because they do provide a real emotional core to these two characters. I mean, you definitely believe that, they are lovers and everything, but then to see that, the training simulation went that deep.
Yeah.
In order to test those loyalties. It's like, yeah, I mean, going back to what you're saying about what is the Matrix capable of, it's like, and I mean, it's capable of just completely bending reality. Like just how you perceive it and everything.
This would be a good way to prevent things happening like that happened with Cypher in the first film.
Probably. You would think so. It's like, no, wait a second. If they have shit like this, and wouldn't he have passed that?
Yeah. I mean, anything's possible. I mean,
yeah, it's true. I mean, human beings are, unpredictable. But
I was wondering about that too while I was watching the first film. Was one of the questions that I, had while watching The Matrix is, did they really just have to trust each other? Like, couldn't any one of them turn out to backstab them like Cypher did? Because, I'm listening to his argument and I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. I could see anybody kind of wondering that. And this short actually answered that question. It's like, if that's made into some sort of requirement, some kind of, simulation that you have to pass. I mean, kind of weeds out the people that are gonna do that.
But even so, I mean, given that Cypher still made that betrayal, I mean, obviously it isn't 100% foolproof. So, I mean, like I said, human beings are unpredictable. I mean,
true.
And like you said, it's totally understandable why Cypher would want to go back to the Matrix. I mean,
yeah.
Especially since it seems like he's somebody that's been out for a good minute, probably even about as long as even Morpheus, maybe. So, I mean, he's obviously been fighting that battle for a long time. So maybe he's just finally done with it, I mean, doesn't mean that he should be betraying his Zion and everything, but just I can see where he's coming from there. But this part here, it seems like there's at least some type of buffer to that, that they at least thought of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about this one too is that the main character we follow in this one, this is a fact I'm pulling from Wikipedia. It actually says that she actually makes an appearance in the Matrix Revisited as an image.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting.
So all right. The next one is probably my least favorite. That is World Record.
World Record was interesting to me. And it, like I said, this is the instance of somebody actually just breaking through the Matrix by sheer power of will. Literally willed himself out of the Matrix just by physical exertion and determination.
Yeah.
And obviously the system knew that he was capable of it because they had agents there that were prepared to stop him.
Yeah, he was so desperate to change reality, to will reality to be, this thing that he so desperately wanted that it literally broke the Matrix. I think it shows that, because we know in the Matrix that once you're aware that you're in a simulation, you can manipulate it. But, this answers the question of, could someone do that subconsciously? And I think that this answers that. But the Matrix's programming isn't equipped to handle that, and he literally breaks through it. And after that moment, after he breaks through, I mean, yeah, he wills himself back into it and he finishes the race. But after that, he can't think about the world again. He sees everything differently. And, the way that it ended kind of left it somewhat ambiguous. So,
yeah. He's irrevocably changed by the end of this. You know, I mean, it's a hell of an experience that he goes through here, especially because he ends up breaking his own world record. Even like he straight up breaks it in the end. So I mean, he achieved what he wanted in the Matrix and transcended it. So
yeah,
and I do like the animation style here. It's very, I mean, it's very kind of Afro Samurai-ish a little bit,
right?
I feel.
Yeah,
it kind of has that vibe to it.
Yeah, I will say that, like, this is one of the, much like Kid's Story, this is definitely top tier animation for me, I feel like. But there are a few of these stories that just really hit a lull for me. And this one, while it is crucial to what we understand and how we understand the Matrix, I think that much like program, you get to see what the Matrix is capable of, but this one you get the reverse, where you get to see what the users within the program are also capable of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I mean, it's obvious that there are quite a few really exceptional people in this world,
right.
Quite a few. But I mean, just once again, just the fact that he does this just by physical exertion and will and determination is just, in a way, it's impressive,
Yeah, this is the one that
Absolutely.
I was saying. It's very anime.
Yeah, it's very anime. Yeah, it's almost like a shonen isekai
character. Yeah.
Yeah, just like going beyond the realms of his own capabilities and the capabilities of the world around him. Yeah, it definitely has that vibe to it.
Following his ninja way.
Yeah, if you want to get all weeb about it. But yeah, anyway, actually, I don't really mind this one so much. I mean, I can kind of see why it wouldn't be everybody's cup of tea, but I mean, I think that it's at least compelling enough it fits well within this anthology.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Like I said, like I said at the beginning of the show, like I understand that this is a enhancement for the fans of the Matrix, and this just wasn't for me. This movie wasn't for me. I think it has a lot of really great ideas. It's just not my personal favorite film. And so moving on, so this is going to be, speaking of favorites, this is yours, and Beyond is the next one.
Oh, man.
Give us a lowdown on Beyond.
Yeah. Such a beautiful, beautiful short, man. Like, the animation is interesting because, like, especially when you get to the area where the Matrix is glitching out, I mean, it really just encapsulates what a glitch like that would look like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's almost like an SCP, it's almost like a skip area, it's just a place where, the boundaries of physics and reality just don't matter anymore.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say, I think Beyond is my favorite as well.
Yeah.
I think it does, among all of these shorts, I think it has one of the coolest concepts. Which is addressing a glitch in the Matrix and how it would affect life and how far that could go and how that could impact someone.
But also how just normal people, even normal kids within the Matrix, would actually approach a glitch like this. I mean, these kids look like they're having a blast there, honestly. And that's the most notable thing about it, is that it really perfectly captures just pure childhood innocence.
Mm-hmm.
There's an innocence about it that is just very beautiful. And then it just becomes transcendent when, that girl, she just slows everything down, and then the Matrix starts to break down around them. But this time around, it's not because of anything they're doing. It's because that's just a weak spot in the Matrix. I mean, which is just going to happen. Like if you remember in the first movie, like any type of deja vu is usually a portent of something going on with the Matrix. It's either glitching out or the agents are on their way to get them. But I mean, also just the way that the glitches are actually kind of portrayed are really interesting. Like for instance, where the kids are totally just like they're just jumping off of the wall and they're just stopping like right at the ground. That's something that me and my friends would have done if we found something like that. 100%. We'd be doing stupid shit like taking a glass bottle, smashing it, and then trying to catch it when it comes back together. Like, I mean, it's just pure childhood wonderment right there, there's just something really pure about it that I really love. And then it's juxtaposed by the system of the Matrix coming in, and they're obviously using the whole extermination angle as a cover and everything. But I mean, it's just like this pure childhood innocence that is just steamrolled in the end, and it just undercuts both, how normal people would react to this, but also just how deeply oppressive that system is,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this one right here, I think you said everything so perfectly that this film definitely encapsulates, and you get to see kind of the darker side of the Matrix in this one. I don't really have anything else to say. You guys, I think, said it all.
Yeah, but there's also that lighter side to it,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a sense of wonderment.
Yeah, I love it.
But then, like all of these, I mean, I think every single one of these ends badly, and it has that depressing ending where she realizes like she's never gonna get to see that again. And I don't know.
Yeah, there's just that moment where that normalcy comes back, and the kids are trying to do the bottle trick, and it's not happening. And that kid's just like, man, I'm leaving. See y'all later. And it's just like, that's just gone, and it's sad.
I mean, with the main character in particular, though, it's like you feel that sorrow and that wonderment is it's gone, and she realizes she's never going to get that back, and she knows something's afoot. Somebody was aware of that and corrected it, but is this someone who may become self-aware later on, or is this the only experience she has in her life? It's not clear,
Yeah. And once again, it goes back to how people experience the Matrix. It's like, how many times does that happen within this world? It's like, I mean, are there areas that go in the Matrix that go unchecked? Are there places like that kind of are like self-sustaining glitches that the Matrix just is incapable of finding? I mean, is the system somewhat imperfect? I mean, it begs so many questions about the world of the Matrix.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so next one we have is a detective story, which is the second one with Trinity, Carrie-Anne Moss coming back to do the voice. And I think this might be my second favorite one because it has that classic feel to it, but yet it still feels like it takes place within the world of the Matrix, which I feel like is a really difficult balancing act to do. I feel like the Matrix always kind of feels encapsulates it like it's like 1999, but during its like third resurgence.
Yeah.
Where people are like, oh, you know what? Man, 90s were a great time, and then everything got depressing, and then everything got good again because the 90s came back, and then they got depressing again. Let's bring them back again. And but this one definitely feels like it harkens back to like the days of like the 20s and just kind of like keeps it real simple. And that's something that I think that this one does really well. But it also you get to kind of see a little bit more of Trinity, whereas I feel like prior to the short, she kind of feels like this like very mysterious character.
Yeah. I think what really makes it work are the that it's a straight up pastiche of the film noir genre.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a genre that really works extremely well in the world of the Matrix, you know? I mean, just that old, you know, the old gumshoe, you know, being hired.
Yeah.
You know, it even has that noirish dialogue to it and everything.
It's
and even
weird how well it works.
Yeah, it's got that black and white vibe to it as well, you know? But I mean, like you said, it's still within the world of the Matrix. Like, he's still going after a hacker and everything, not just any hacker, Trinity, you know, who, I mean, in the Matrix, you know, at the beginning of the Matrix, she's well established as having some infamy among hackers, you know. But I mean, and the interesting thing is that he is an instance of another person who could very well potentially transcend the Matrix, you know. And I mean, he doesn't really get to see the actual truth, but he knocks on that door, you know?
Yeah, and I love the way that his character kind of sets out there as he kind of feels like he's not meant for that kind of world. I mean, he did what he needed to do. You know, this was his job, but, you know, he kind of has the sense of accomplishment, I guess, as he dies. And he realizes, you know, I'm an old-fashioned guy. Whatever truth there is, I don't know, but you know, she's the one that's like, I think you could have handled it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also the best kind of film noir story. I mean, she's the femme fatale of the story. And that's what you kind of have for a good film noir movie, is the femme fatale. You know, that's like part and parcel of that genre. But I mean, what's interesting about that is she's kind of shrouded in even more mystery than normal for that genre.
Yeah.
You know? But I mean, and the way that they portrayed her character was really, really cool. You know, I mean, it's like she's actually a very adept. She's even more adept in this than I think even in the Matrix originally. You know?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, man. All right, so we got a couple more shorts to go through here. The two more actually. I mean, so more.
Matriculated?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's the Peter Chung one. It's like, for all my 90s kids who watched MTV back in the day and watched Aeon Flux, that one is all for y'all, man, because that is pretty much Aeon Flux in the Matrix world, like 100%. Like from the real like mind screwy stuff to you know, just to the animation style and everything. I mean, it's pure Peter Chung, and I love it just for that.
That whole one feels like an acid trip, man. That is a fun.
Like I said, it's probably possibly the mind screwiest like short out of all of these.
That one may actually be my second favorite for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, and it was actually really top-notch animation for its time. I mean, and top-notch CGI for its time as well.
Yeah, I love most of everything we've seen so far from the animation style. I will save my thoughts on where the animation style lacks for the very last one. But I think here, this one absolutely has just a great just mind effery aesthetic to it that I feel like really helps it stand out from the other ones. And I just love how simple we follow this woman Alexa's journey throughout the Matrix, and kind of getting to see you know, just I'm sorry, it's late here, so mine's not working the way it is, but you know, I think that it works really well. And the ending, I think, with this one, with the replica of Alexa, kind of really does like mess with your mind a little bit.
Yeah, it's a real tearjerker, you know, because I mean, what they're doing is they're actually converting Sentinels to their side.
This takes another interesting concept, and it was, you know, an inevitable question of the Matrix. And it's like, what if, you know, in order to reprogram a machine, you put it through the same kind of simulated reality? What is that like for a machine to experience, you know, who can't distinguish between reality and virtual reality? so they say, and so I thought that's what makes this such a trip, is it's like you're in the mind of a machine whose own world is everything it never thought it was, and I thought that was just a really, really screwy kind of, mind freak situation. I don't know.
You know what was weird? It's like the way that they had their representations in that simulation and everything. Like it was weird how, kind of, what's the word? Really absurdist they were with it.
I mean, it almost goes kind of Lynchian.
Almost. I mean, you have like the dude acting all playful, like they're all acting all playful and everything at first, There's even the blonde girl and that dude making out and everything, playfully and everything. It's like, I mean, at first you're just like, where are they going with this? But then, at the end, it's just like, hey, it all leads to that particular sentinel, just being reprogrammed. And
yeah, but then it's sad, like that machine, like it just wants to get back to that like blissful experience that it had, and it tries to bring that, and it tries to bring her into that safety and do what it thinks is the best thing to do, and she's scared of it, and that's heartbreaking, and then everybody dies.
Yeah, everybody is dead.
It's like an episode of C-Lab 2021.
Pretty much. Yep, just things happen and then C-Lab blows up.
As one does, yeah.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
All right, the last one, and this one is Final Flight of the Osiris, and dear God, there are some things about the early 2000s animation I just do not miss. And this one is like PlayStation 2 era, so
I'd say it's probably kind of a little better than that. I would say it's kind of comparable to Final Fantasy Spirits Within. I don't know if you remember that.
I do, yeah.
It's kind of similar to that to me. I mean, and I like that it's telling the story of it's actually a very important part of the Matrix storyline, is like, that lead up to the machine's attack on Zion. Mm-hmm. And that's like that first little nugget of information that they're trying to get to Zion, that hey, this attack, which, by the way, you can't tell me in 1 second that's not some type of allusion to Evangelion.
So is this basically like
it's totally an allusion to Evangelion. Like Zion is nerve all the way. But anyway, yeah, it really puts in a very important piece in that puzzle as to what happens between Reloaded and Revelations.
Isn't it kind of like Rogue One, right?
It's got that Rogue One vibe to it. Yeah.
It's like the same thing, right? They're trying to get that one message out, and everybody dies in the process of doing it.
Yeah, it kind of is like that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that for what it is, it's pretty okay. I mean, I'm going to say that is probably my least favorite like short out of all of them, honestly.
Yeah, the dated animation doesn't help. I mean, the fact that they had to go CG with it. I mean,
yeah, I get why they wanted to do that, because I mean, CG was really in its infancy back then, and they really wanted to kind of push that technology. Mm-hmm. And for its time, it was pretty good. I mean, nowadays it does kind of have that video gamey vibe to it.
See, and if they had gone for an animation and drawing style in CG that was closer to like cell shading, for instance, what you might see in anime fighting games, that probably would have worked better.
Well, how far ahead was that particular technology at the time, though?
I don't know. The Wind Waker came out in like 2003, right?
Yeah, but that's a video game. You know, I mean, we're talking about a CGI animation, similar thing, but not entirely the same thing. You know,
I don't know. The cutscenes in the Wind Waker looked pretty good.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, I think that it's passable.
The fact that it went for a realistic art style is what dates it. But at the time, I guess it probably looked great, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, so the thing that, like, the reason I bring it up, and like, but I think I'm right there with you. Like, this is definitely one of the worst in the series of 9. Is like, Star Wars, Clone Wars. I've always heard people tell me it's such a great show, you got to get into it. And I've tried on like almost half a dozen occasions to sit down and watch that series and just cannot get into the animation style. So if you can't hook, line, and sinker me with your animation, then chances are I'm not going to be into the story you're trying to tell. I mean, it could be like the greatest story ever, but if I can't get into the animation style, I just zone out. And like, I was already, that's kind of how I feel about this one, is like, I honestly couldn't tell you anything about like this one in particular. It's basically like 2 horny people are in the dojo simulation, and it's like a kinkier version of the dojo scene from the first Matrix.
Yeah, it's a really horny, very horny and thirsty scene.
I don't know, everything else in this is very inspired. I think that's where the direction of the other writers and directors, the Japanese ones, kind of came into play. That last one really just feels like that's the Wachowskis, and they're very good at what they do, but it's very mainstream. It's you know, it's not.
I get what you mean.
It's most like the vibe of the first movie, I would say.
Yeah.
Or the trilogy overall. And I love the first movie. I liked Animatrix more. So I mean, it is kind of a letdown from the other shorts in the series.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think one of the problems is that, you know, you brought up like this feels like out of the trilogy that the Wachowski sisters did, this is the one that feels most like it fits into their universe. I think the problem that I have is that it feels familiar, whereas the other 8 shorts are like, let's challenge and see what the Matrix is actually capable of doing, being, where it started, how deep can it go. But we're gonna take a condensed version of the very first film, change out the names, and put a love story in it, and this is how we're gonna end the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I think that kind of perfectly sums up, you know, how I feel about it.
But here's my question: would it have been better with a rave orgy in it? I think that if there would have been a rave orgy in it, it would have been just fantastic.
Indubitably.
Yes, definitely. 100%.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, a rave orgy would have made it better.
I really hope not. All right, I think that's gonna do it for us. We got 2 more trips left in our Matrix series. We're gonna be talking about Revolution next week, along with the brand new one, Resurrections. And you guys, make sure that you guys check out part 2 to this crossover with our friends over at Collateral-Cinema. On that portion, we're going to be talking about a Christmas movie, not marketed as a Christmas movie. You can hear all about that. It's called Last Ounce of Courage, and it's also streaming for free right now on YouTube. So if you want to watch it in preparation, make sure you guys check it out. But where can people?
We'll be sure to put a link to that in our show notes. Like, maybe we'll just go ahead and put a link to the movie and just be like, here you go, y'all. Have fun.
Yeah. So, but I mean, where can people find the where can people find more about the Collateral Media podcasts?
Well, first off, you can find us on Podbean, of course. That's our main RSS feed. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We do have a Facebook group, Collateral Media Podcast. Search it on Facebook. You can also find us on Patreon. We have full-length feature movie commentaries for movies like The Room and Freddy Got Fingered and whatnot. And those tiers start at $1 and $5. And as far as where you can find us, as far as the podcast is concerned, you can also find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio,
Apple
Podcasts, Chill Lover Radio, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. And also look for us on YouTube. We might be doing some YouTube content very soon, especially after the season is over. So look for that. And also we have a movie that we are making with Robert Ortegon, our friend, and also pretty much like the in-house filmmaker for Collateral Media, pretty much. And that's Texas Sundown, and he's written by him, starring him and Ash. I do some of the camera work and whatnot, so it's going to be very interesting, I think. So look for that from us. And yeah, like I said, wherever you get your podcast, your favorite podcatcher app, check us out.
Yeah, and in addition to our Christmas episode with Captain Nostalgia, we are also doing Double Down and Bolero this month. So those should be out probably by the time this is out, I imagine.
And we are also going to have Collateral-Cinema Director's Cut, which is our bonus content that we release on the RSS feed. That's going to be our Christmas episode where we're talking to Cinema Snob. We're talking, namely his holiday movie reviews, his holiday episodes. And we're going to be talking about his movie, which is a parody of those type of War on Christmas or Christian movies, called Jesus Bro. And it's going to be very interesting. Honestly, I can't wait to get to that.
All right, well, make sure that you guys follow. We'll have links in the descriptions below. But speaking of filmmaking, if you guys are a filmmaker, have a horror short or horror feature, please consider submitting your film to the first ever film festival that is horror-centric, mental health focused. It's called Horrific Hope, and it's going to be April 29th and 30th. You guys can find links in the descriptions below. And we are going into our regular period for submission right now. Our early bird period is over, but you guys can find us, that is, and if you guys want to just look that up, that's filmfreeway.com/victims and villains. You guys can find me. I'm on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia. You guys can also follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, along with if you go to victimsandvillains.net, not only will you get links to all of those social media, the film festival links, become a Patreon supporter, but also more importantly, find mental health resources. And yeah, happy holidays, guys.